Introduction into AI. So, what we're going to do is really just kind of give an introduction into what AI is and walk through what GitLab can do for you in for your AI solutions here. Okay. All right. Again, our little track. So we see where we are. We are going to be talking about the introduction. And so, what is AI? Where did this all start? And really, the term artificial intelligence was coined, some time ago, back in, let's call it 1955. And I know it can seem sometimes that with all the emphasis on AI lately, that is more of a recent development. But yep, the background actually dates back, as we see here, to the 50s. And when this happened, it really kicked off a wave of research projects into the feasibility of the technology, what was possible, what was desired, and most importantly, how can we make the coolest sci-fi movies that feature AI? Now, it's been evolving ever since, and it's certainly permeated its way into much of what we use today in some form or fashion. So, in terms of humans versus AI, this is actually quite interesting. And now I'm not talking about the Terminator or the Matrix here. I'm talking about real life, right? Or if we're in the Matrix, maybe we are in real life. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. One of the first things I remember is IBM's supercomputer called Deep Blue, playing world champion Garry Kasparov in chess in the late 90s. Now, they played a couple of matches, and Kasparov won the first time, but it certainly shook the world when the computer actually beat the world champion the second time they played together. And this led to other games against humans. So, what else could they do? Could it win in Jeopardy? Could it win in Pac-Man? And then there was the game Go. Now, the Go matchups were a big breakthrough, and not because AI eventually won, but due to how it won. The AI ignored most of the social norms, and it made moves that no human would actually make because it would take away from the spirit of the game. So the AI was learning, being more strategic, and it was planning ahead. Again, it was evolving. Now, to bring us a little ahead now to, like, say, 2015, one of the most recognized AI brands, OpenAI, was founded. And in keeping with the game's theme, one of its actual first projects was to train their models playing Dota 2, which is a competitive 5-on-5 video game. And it got so good at the game that eventually started beating 99% of the matches that it was playing in, including against some of the best players in the world. So this led OpenAI to the eventual creation of, eventually over time, to ChatGPT, which I'm sure most of you have heard of and probably use sometime this week, maybe even today. Now, the purpose of ChatGPT was to let developers call on it for, quote, any English language AI task. So this, of course, led to lots of college kids trying to use it to create their reports and their thesis papers. So don't do that, but use it for other amazing things, which you can do for, right? Or which it can be used for. So what does that trip down memory lane actually have to do with what we're doing today? So if AI can beat world champions in chess, and especially in games with 30 million players when there's prize pools available to them, why wouldn't you want to use it for your work as well? Because in our software world, it's all about speed to market, right? So we want AI to help us with our efficiency. We want our developers to understand more about what they need to create. We want AI to help with improving security in our code and understanding and remediating vulnerabilities as they come up. We want to be able to help with things like repetitive tasks and creation of documentation for our code. Now, I hope this gets you a bit excited about what we're going to be doing today, because we're going to get you hands-on in just a moment with those features as I introduce GitLab Duo to you. All right. So I've got a little video here I'm going to play, and should have everything shared. So here we go.
You're a developer working on a mission-critical customer-facing app. Here's how GitLab Duo acts as your AI assistant through the whole software development lifecycle. Instead of wading through weeks of comments, GitLab Duo summarizes technical needs and infrastructure requirements, instantly generating a to-do list. And all it takes is one click for you to transform your notes into detailed issue descriptions. Now, it's time to start coding. Let's say the task in your first issue is developing a new feature, which requires adding a new method to the existing Java app. You open the web IDE and describe the task, and GitLab Duo instantly generates the method. You can focus on the core business logic, while Duo handles syntax and boilerplate code. As you work, Duo crafts contextual suggestions to fill in the gaps, speeding up the process. When a vulnerability is detected, GitLab Duo instantly provides a summary and suggests how to fix it. It even generates a merge request that resolves the vulnerability with a detailed description and the actual code. You don't need to be a Go expert to integrate a feature developed by another team written in Go, because with GitLab Duo, the context you need is at your fingertips. It provides clear code explanations for seamless integration. And if you have questions, Duo Chat is there for in-depth help. It's available platform-wide, so you can use its knowledge base to dig deeper. Merge request time. Oh, you've hit a challenge. Your pipeline build fails. What once required looking through hundreds of log lines is now solved with a click, using GitLab Duo's root cause analysis. Problem identified, fix suggested, problem solved. Now you're ready for code review. Select from a list of recommended reviewers based on their expertise and availability. Your tasks are complete, efficiently and successfully, thanks to GitLab Duo. It doesn't stop at coding. With automated test generation, you can catch bugs early. And with the AI Impact Dashboard, you can measure AI's impact in real time. GitLab Duo demonstrates what can be achieved when AI is incorporated throughout the software development lifecycle. Make this a reality and leverage the most comprehensive AI-driven DevSecOps platform for faster, more secure software development.
Awesome. Well, pardon me. Thank you so much for watching that. I do see a question come through. What is Duo short for? Actually, Duo is really the idea is being the dynamic duo. It's kind of like Batman and Robin, right? You and GitLab working together. That's essentially what Duo is. So it's just the two of you working together on that. So the dynamic duo essentially there. All right. Okay. So let's go ahead and continue on. And oh, that's not. We don't want to watch that video again. As much as I like it, we're not going to watch that again. So we're going to go to the next slide. All right, so what does AI in GitLab look like? We just saw the video on that. Let me talk a little bit more about the AI features that GitLab has. Again, AI in GitLab. So when we talk about AI in or GitLab Duo with for our users, we're not just adding another tool to your stack there, right? We're embracing a new paradigm essentially of AI-led software development that really helps you accelerate your cycle time. And we're going to do that with 3 different ways that we can assist our organizations. Okay. So let's talk about those. So GitLab is a platform powered by AI, and GitLab Duo is a recent ad for us. And it's essentially Duo is our suite of capabilities that provides AI-assisted workflows for everyone involved in developing and deploying software. And as I mentioned, our approach is really differentiated in 3 major ways. First, AI is integrated throughout the entire software development platform or development lifecycle. And it's really only possible when you have a platform like ours that is built on a unified data store. So the entire user experience improves really cycle time as a whole, rather than really just focusing on an initial stage, let's say, of code creation only. And then, when we integrate AI throughout the SDLC, the software delivery lifecycle, it solves a couple of big pain points. One is that using AI with disjointed point solutions, that can be a mess, right? You can expect if you expect inconsistent results from one prompt, just imagine if you've got multiple generative AI tools giving you different solutions and giving different answers. So you're going to kind of parse through what's the right one. Lack of consistency can create more risk in the security you've got. Your compliance needs may not be met, and also affect other areas of the SDLC. And then also using AI simply just for the point of code generation, it creates faster coding, but it does not actually reflect the day in the life of the developer. So we recently did a DevSecOps survey. We do one all the time, but our most recent DevSecOps survey asked, how do developers spend their time? And about a quarter of the time is spent, 21% of the time is spent actually coding. The rest of the time is spent doing other things, right? So we want to make sure that we improve the developer's experience and quality of life, other than just actually suggesting code for them, right? They're testing, they're securing, they're analyzing software, they're writing documentation. So we use GitLab Duo for that. And it's differentiated in 2 other ways, because we know that privacy is critical to our customers, and just want to go out and say right away, privacy and transparency first is how we developed it. And we don't train on any of your data. We don't allow Duo to train on your data. It's not used for training or fine tuning of any of the models that we have behind the scenes. And finally, we've architected the platform in a way to use the best-in-class models. There's a lot of things that we're doing with GitLab Duo, which we'll talk about again as we go through the hands-on today. And, not one model isn't suited for everything. So we use multiple models in here. And some models are better than others at specific tasks. So we want to make sure that we're using the right model in the right case. And we are not tied to any specific LLM for that. So we can use those. Again, this is a quick view of where GitLab Duo's capabilities can be found throughout a GitLab, or depending upon maybe the role that you're in. So if you are in charge of, let's say, securing applications, you want to use it for explaining vulnerabilities or maybe suggesting reviewers for the code, explaining what the code may be. If you're interested in, of course, improving quality, again, explaining the code is fantastic. Generating tests, documentation, what does my commit message mean? Summarizing reviews here that we've got. So you can use Duo's capabilities across multiple areas in the SDLC that we saw in that video. I mentioned earlier, privacy is a concern, especially at the enterprise level. We take that approach. GitLab it is rooted in our values, which we'll show in just a moment. We are building our AI capabilities with IP protection in mind, privacy and compliance in mind. And again, reiterating, we do not train our model on any customer data. Because it's so important to us, we created our AI Transparency Center, where anybody can come in and take a look, our customers, our prospects, anybody coming in and seeing how important this is to us. As I mentioned, transparency is so built in. It is a core value of GitLab. We do this with not only our AI solution, but anything we build with GitLab. You have access to our roadmaps. You can see where our direction is. It's very, very important that we know that our customers understand what we're building and how we're building it. Right. So I encourage you all to take a look at this Transparency Center if you're interested in seeing how we're upholding ethics and transparency in our AI-powered features. I talked earlier about using the right model for each use case. So when you're adopting AI tools, the response quality can be the difference between an AI tool getting in your way versus actually making you more productive. Because we span the entire SDLC and what you get with a single platform, is we need models that can support things like text to code, code to text, natural language processing, etc. So no one model is really right for every Duo feature. We have an abstraction layer that makes it possible for us to power GitLab Duo with multiple models depending upon what the right need is. And currently, we leverage models from Google AI and Anthropic. And we're constantly evaluating new models and new AI vendors to make sure that we are using the best ones for those purposes. As I mentioned earlier, GitLab is not commercially tied to an individual large language model provider. And so we can swap in models as needed to provide the highest quality output. This brings us to our last slide here, and arguably my favorite slide that we've ever presented here created at GitLab, showing us the entire GitLab workflow essentially and where AI is presented throughout. So GitLab, as I mentioned, is a comprehensive single AI-powered DevSecOps platform. And it brings together the entire software development lifecycle into this single application. And it's from everywhere from your planning in that upper left for things like high-level epics, all the way to the deployment and monitoring of your code in there as well. And all of that green, teal colored text is where AI is featured throughout the SDLC. So it's not just in that one area of code suggestions, it's throughout. And this is also going to enable that value stream driven mindset, right? It's a mindset about going from customer need all the way to customer value with the fastest cycle time possible. And that's really the goal we want to talk about today is how do we improve the developer experience and give you that faster time to market. All right. So let's go ahead and talk about our hands-on exercise, and we'll jump right into that now. So what we're going to do is we're already this far along in our agenda. Let's go ahead and talk about getting some hands-on. So I'm going to jump over into the actual screen that we created earlier. So hopefully everyone's had time to go through that scenario of opening up your exercise in your instance. And what we're going to do is do that. One thing I want to verify before we actually get going is it usually happens. It should be taken care of already, but I do want to verify one thing with everybody. If everyone would please get to this screen. So on this My Test group. And what we want to do is we want to go into the actual project itself. Okay, so what we were looking at a moment ago was a group within GitLab. Now I'm within a project within GitLab. So clicking on that, I'm in a project. I know I'm in a project because it says project here. Okay. And I want to come down to the settings area. And I'm asking you to do the same here. I'm going to go to settings and I want to go to general. And I want to verify that no one sees in the advanced area here, I want to make sure that no one sees that there's a forked relationship still. If there is a forked relationship, if you still see a red button, that says remove fork, please go ahead. It'll be somewhere in this particular section here. Go through the instructions of removing that fork. You'll need to, mine's already done and yours all should be done as well. But I just want to make sure that maybe there's that one or two people. Sometimes it comes across, and I just want to make sure that we're all set up for success for this particular demonstration or hands-on. So if you see a forked relationship section here, go ahead and follow the instructions to remove that fork relationship. Okay, that's going to make your lives so much easier in this demo today. All right, cool. So let's get back to where we want to be, and let's talk about at the project level itself. So here we go. So let's back into our repository and we'll get started. The first thing we want to do is we're going to get you in the instructions side by side with what we're going to be working on today. And we create all of our instructions in an issue. Now, one thing I'll point out is that GitLab on the left-hand side here, see, let me close this up here. Give us more room. GitLab on the left-hand side here, you've got this area for plan, and you can see your list of issues, right? GitLab also allows you to pin certain screens to an area in your menu bar for ones that you may come back to over and over again. So you'll see I've got a pinned area here for issues, and you'll see it up here. So if I click on issues, you'll see that I've got one issue here for modern development with GitLab AI. These are the instructions we're going to be looking at today. I encourage you all to maybe open up this in a new tab. So you can right click on that in whatever browser you're in, open that up in a new tab, open it up side by side. I'm using Arc here, so I can right click and say, open it in split view. It's going to help you along as we're going through. So you can follow along with the instructions, because there's going to be some things that I'm going to want you to copy and paste from these instructions as we go through the demonstration today. So find a way to open this up, maybe in a separate tab or side by side, so you have access to that as we're walking through. Okay. Excellent. So that's what we got our issue for. So throughout this workshop, what we're going to do is we're going to be using our AI generated support from GitLab Duo Chat. So let's go ahead and introduce you to GitLab Duo Chat right now. In the upper right-hand screen, or the upper right-hand corner, excuse me, you'll see a button for GitLab Duo Chat, and it will look like this. You can start asking it questions. GitLab Duo Chat is fantastic for asking questions about GitLab. It's got all information about how we do how we can do things in GitLab. You can click on one of these preset questions if you want to get us some information. So, how do I fork a project? And it's going to find an answer and present us that information here in the in our chat window here, right? So it's going to giving us some information here about how to fork a project in GitLab. Go ahead and you can ask some questions here. You can also reset it. So if you want to do a new clear the context, you can actually clear the message as well. So you get back to where you were. So if you just want to get a fresh screen, we're going to be using GitLab Duo Chat throughout the demonstration today, the hands-on. So go ahead and get used to using this and seeing it on your screen as we go. Oh, one thing I should point out is that in every question that you'll ask it, it's going to ask you a link at the bottom to give feedback to improve this answer. We're always trying to make sure that we're giving you the best possible help and assistance with our GitLab Duo. So please feel free, if something is not meeting your needs, please give us that feedback so we can know sure that we're tuning it properly and we're making sure we're getting the right answers for the future for training our GitLab Duo there. Okay. All right. Excellent. One thing I'll also point out in the instructions is that all of the features, all the AI features for this particular demonstration have already been enabled for this environment. So we've got AI features that we're currently working on in GitLab. Some things are experimental. Some things are still in beta stage, and they have to be turned on sometimes at the group level to make sure they're working. But rest assured, everything you need is going to be turned on for this particular demonstration for you for today. Okay. Again, if you want to use GitLab Duo to help you with that, you can copy one of the instruction questions here and ask it in here. How do I enable experimental and AI features for GitLab Duo? And it's going to walk us through the instructions on how we do that. So it's going to let you know if you have questions about how to do that. It's going to help you understand how GitLab can do various things. All right, so that's Duo Chat. As I mentioned, we're going to be coming back and using that throughout. So if you want to close it, you can. If you want to keep it open, that's fine too. But I'm going to go ahead and close mine for right now because we're definitely going to be using it over and over today. All right. What we want to do today, as we mentioned, if you remember our story, we are brought in as a new team member, and we're going to be helping out with this Tanuki Racing team member, Tanuki Racing project that we're working on. We want to get up to speed on what we're doing, and we want to make sure we're capturing the work that we need to do here. So, because GitLab is a single platform, allowing you to plan your work and see it through and commit, attach it, of course, all to your commits and see all the CI associated with it. We're going to create a new issue where we're capturing what we're going to be doing. So let's go ahead again and go into our issue screen. If you're already here, perfect. If you're not, you can click on issues. If you don't happen to have issues there, you can click on plan and go to the issue page, right? It's just going to refresh mine. Excellent. So now we're going to say new issue. We're going to give our issue a title. You can call it, no one's grading you on this. You can call it whatever you want. I'm going to say something like, we want to say something like, investigate code. How about I spell it right? That'd be great. Wow, I got a little crazy there. Investigate code and fix vulnerabilities. There we go. Something like that. Okay. And then what we want to do is we want to actually make sure that the first part that we're going to start introducing some GitLab Duo features to is generating issue description for us. Oftentimes, did I spell that wrong? Yeah, look at me. I'm pretty good. There we go. What we're going to do is we're going to add a description here. I'm sorry, we're going to use GitLab Duo to help us generate a description for this. You should see this icon here for GitLab Duo. This is the icon you're going to see throughout the application or the solution to let you know that that's where an AI feature is for you, right? So we've got this little Tanuki icon there with the little stars around it. That is our AI icon. If you're not seeing that, please make sure that you are not in the rich text mode. You want to be in plain text editing, and you'll be able to see that at that point. Okay. So we're going to click on that, and we're going to say generate issue description. In the pop-up, you can write whatever you'd like in here again, and challenge GitLab to do some things in there. I'm going to say, I'm going to copy what we have here in our instructions, copy it in here, and I'll put in here and say fix any newly discovered vulnerabilities. I'll try something different, and please make this rhyme. Let's see if it works. Please make this rhyme. Wow, my spelling is great today. Let's see if it works, and I'll say submit. So it's generating an issue description for me. I don't know if we're actually going to get a rhyme out of it, but we're going to be doing this. It's going to replace that description area. I may have gotten a little freaked out with the rhyme thing there, but it's going to replace our description area with what we put into that code. So I'll give it a sec there to do that. And again, as I mentioned, some things are in experimental phase. Some things are in beta. We're always tweaking as we're going on. So this may be one of those where it's not, we may be doing some stuff behind the scenes to actually get that work. Oh, and it failed to generate a description here. Let me take away the rhyme part and see if that helps me here. And say submit. And that's okay if it does. As mentioned, the experimental phase. There we go. Look at that. So I included this. It made this description for me here. It actually took in a pretty large description from maybe a previous one that I was looking at using the AI. As I mentioned, the experimental phase may have come in here and changed some things. But I encourage you, please, to play with yours the issue description to see if it's actually generating what it did. It did generate this, and it's saying it needs to integrate built-in security scanner. So it did add this information. I can tweak this as I need to, but it did generate a description for me from that area. That's fine. I can always come back and check this. All right. And it gave me some acceptance criteria on this one that I could do. It added some labels for me. It added some priority here, which is fine. So it did take a large amount of information from that initial description that I wanted to put in for this description. What we'll do now is we'll actually just go ahead and create it and submit this issue. You can assign it to yourself if you want and say create issue. So now we've got our first issue that we're going to track all of our work associated with this. Okay. Excellent. So everyone should have that issue created and good to go. Now, the next piece that I want to talk about while we're here is that when we're talking about issues, Issues are used throughout GitLab. We of course use GitLab to generate or to develop GitLab. We use issues heavily to make sure that our teams are working on the appropriate items. There's a lot of activity and information's shared in these issues. It's really how we actually track and progress the work we're getting done. So another area that we've got for AI and Duo is be able to summarizing big discussions being held on an issue. We just created this issue. If I look down here, there's no activity. It's simply just me creating this particular item right now. But anybody who's helped planning this work with me has the ability to add commentary and comments along with this. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that we make it as easy as possible for those members to be able to, understand what this issue actually is. What I'm talking about here is I'm going to go to an actual sample example. In the instructions that you have, there is a link to an example issue. I've already got one here, so I'll open this up. And here's a sample issue to show you what this looks like. This sample issue, this is a rather large one. It's been around for quite some time. And if we look at the activity, there's a significant amount of commentary along this item here, right? But right at the top of the activity bar, I've got a view summary button. And I'm going to click on view summary. Duo Chat's going to open one more time with an automatic click for summarizing comments, and it's going to give me a summary of what this is. Now, imagine you're a new developer like we are in this scenario. Imagine there's a big backlog of work and you need to go through the issues that are part of that particular backlog. Well, now, as opposed to sitting there and reading each one, you can view a summary of all the activity on that issue and get up to speed that much faster on this item as well. Okay? So it's a great it's a great time savings in that particular area for that. We also have the same epic. We have the same functionality at an epic level as well. So if you're the large level planner and you want to understand the work across all the issues that are currently being done for that particular epic, if you're familiar with that terminology, then you can use those summaries as well. So this is a great way of getting that information around that issue in a quick way, so you don't have to sit there and read everything around that. Okay. All right. So again, I'm going to leave this issue. I don't want to be doing everything else. So if you did open up this issue, I want to make sure that you do go back to your sample issue again that you created earlier, because that's where the workshop is going to be. The hands-on portion is going to work. You won't be able to do what we're going to do if you're staying in this issue here. Okay. So I've gone back to my original area. All right. So we've seen some things where GitLab Duo can help us in that planning phase by making us making us a little more efficient in this area. Now let's talk about where we get our CI area, where we start actually building out some code and building our pipeline. So as I mentioned, GitLab is a single application for your entire SDLC. So not only are we doing planning work, but we also have, of course, where the repository of the code is and how we can actually build that code with our CI pipelines. So what I'm going to need everyone to do now is we're going to execute the pipeline of the project to populate our project with some useful information that we're going to use throughout. What we're going to do is we're going to execute this pipeline manually. So in the left-hand side, we're going to use our navigation bar here to go to our build area and specifically our pipeline editor. What this is going to do is it's going to open up what our existing GitLab CI YAML file looks like. Now, that's a mouthful, but what the YAML file is essentially is the blueprint for how that pipeline is going to run. It's by default, it has one here. Don't run it yet. What we're going to do is we're actually going to change this information. We're going to change this and then we're going to run the pipeline. Okay. So in your instructions, again, if you've got that issue linked to the side or in a different tab, go to the section for the AI and the CI pipeline. Right. And what we're going to do is we're going to copy that code that's in that section. If you need to see what that looks like, again, I'll go to my issues real quick. I'll come back here. I'm just showing you where you would find this. It's here in the instructions. And we are in this section right here. So AI in your CI pipeline. We're going to copy this code. Okay. We're going to go back to that, or I'm going to go back. If you have it side by side, you're fine. I'm going to go to the pipeline editor. And I'm going to take out what's already here. We're going to replace this information here. So I'm just going to select all this. I'm going to delete that and then copy in what I copied in from my instructions. A couple things you may have noticed when I did that. On my screen, you may have noticed a bunch of other YAML files jumped over here on the left-hand side here. That's because we're making heavy use of what we call our include statements here. We're including templates from outside other YAML files that GitLab has included. This is a great, talk about time savings. This is another great way of making sure you don't have to repeat yourself every time. You can include external YAML files that have jobs and stages and things that you want your pipeline to run as you're going through. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and kick off this pipeline. So as a good stored of your code. Perhaps you put in a commit message of what you want to do. It's already defaulted to uploading this file. We are going to commit this to the main branch. Again, this is something you can set up in GitLab to make sure you don't, people can't always do this, or in your own coding practices, you may not want to do this. However, in our hands-on lab, we are going to do committing it to the main branch for right now. So we're going to commit those changes. And it's going to start kicking off a pipeline. I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to ruin a secret here. It's going to fail. We're purposely going to fail this pipeline, and that's okay because we want to see what happens when we do that. Again, we're going to let that run through. Oh, one thing I do want to point out is that as that's running, and I'm going to go to that screen in a moment, is that if I wanted to see what these pipelines, I'm sorry, these templates look like, these other YAML files, that's what appeared over here on the left-hand side. So already I know I'm going to be doing some SAS scanning on here, right? Some security scanning. I can open up the YAML file and see what that looks like. That's great, right? I want to be able to see that. That's perfect. So I can see exactly what those files are going to look like by adding them into that include file there. All right. We can check on the status of the pipeline by going to the pipelines page, and we can see what's currently running. So again, everyone should be having this, everyone should have a pipeline kicked off if they ran those instructions that way. And we can go into the pipeline and we can see what's running here. Well, we can see a couple of different stages here. We've got a build stage, right? We've got a build stage, which has a number of jobs, or 2 jobs, excuse me. And I've got a test stage, which has 2 jobs as well. Or I'm sorry, a number of jobs as well. As I mentioned, this will take a second to run, but we're purposely going to fail that. So it's going to have a failed build job here in a moment. You can see it's running. The build stage is running. It already ran the X-ray stage. There's a number of things you can do with GitLab CI to make sure that your jobs are running in the right order. You can have them run them in parallel. You can have them wait for other areas. You can have them rely on other pieces before they run. You can send variables. There's a number of things you can do with GitLab CI. So definitely, that's another webinar we can set up at some other time. I'm sure our marketing team does those. I know we do. I encourage you to join those to learn more about GitLab CI. All right. While I was talking about that, we saw that our pipeline failed. It failed because we have the big red X right there, right? If by chance you went to somewhere else and need to get back here, you can come to pipelines. You can see that we failed here as well. You can go directly into the job itself by clicking on the X and going to build, right? And you can see that we've got a log here of what the of what happened in this job. So a number of things happened. The GitLab runner behind the scenes was taking the instructions that we gave it and running it accordingly and trying to build what we wanted to build. But as you can see, we eventually failed. Now this is a lot of text to go through, right? There's a job log here, and yes, if you wanted to, if you're a glutton for punishment, you can kind of go through, see everything it did, and try to find out where it failed. And one could do that. Or you could take advantage of the next piece I'm going to talk about here, which is using Duo Chat to help us understand and troubleshoot this issue. So there's a button down here that says troubleshoot. And if we click on that, it automatically puts a prompt over in Duo Chat for me for troubleshooting, and it's going to find an answer for us. And it's going to give us a root cause of failure. This is by far my favorite thing that we do with GitLab Duo. Being able to solve these problems quick like this, being able to understand where an error is in a GitLab in a pipeline is very cool and a huge time savings. I'm embarrassed by how long it's taken me sometimes to figure out where my pipeline or how my pipeline is broken because of some grammatical error, or I spelled something wrong, or I've introduced the wrong variable, something like that, and it's taken me a really long time to find that. This is a great way of being able to find my information of why my code broke in my pipeline. Okay. So what we can do here is, again, as we expected this to fail, and we see here that we got an access forbidden in this particular case, right? We were not able to proceed with pushing a Docker image out because we have access forbidden. That's great. I forgot to add in my my credentials in order to do that. So let's go ahead, and thankfully we have this help. We can go through, we can see what the root cause of failure was. We can see what an example fix may be, right? We give some examples here of here are some suggestions, right? We can ensure that these variables are set. We can make sure that they're set in the project settings area by using registry variables. We may want to have a before script in here as well. So it gives us some areas to check out to make sure that we're fixing this issue, right? Some suggestions for us. And again, it may vary depending upon what your actual setup is, but these are some great ways to eliminate the obvious, right? And it should have been an obvious one to me that I didn't put any credentials in, but now that we know that, we can make this change. Excellent. All right, so let's go ahead and actually fix this, right? So once more time, we're going to go ahead and use our pipeline editor, our pipeline editor to fix this, sorry. So let's go ahead and build one more time and pipeline editor, and we're going to go ahead and make this change. Back in the pipeline editor, again, in the instructions, it's going to tell you where we need to add this. So let's go ahead and you can take if you wanted to, you can take that code from the chat, but I'm going to take this information here. I'm just simply copying this line from my instructions, and I'm going to go to where we are doing our actual Docker information. So we've got our Docker info, we're pushing the image here, and we're building the image, excuse me, and then we're pushing it, but we neglected to actually add in our credentials for our registry. So let's go ahead and add that line in there. And what we're using here is we are using GitLab CI predefined variables. So it's taking my username, my password here, and using our GitLab CI registry on this. But again, if you wanted to set up individual variables, you could do that as well and call those here. We're just happen to be using our predefined ones. All right. One more time, we're going to go ahead and commit that and run it on our main branch. Great. So what that's going to do now is that's going to run that pipeline, and it's going to take some time to do that. So now it's going to run through all the stages. If we ran that accordingly, we ran that appropriately and correctly, it's going to run through everything. It should not fail that job anymore here. All right. So while we're waiting for that to do, let's go ahead and talk about some other things we can do with a GitLab Duo chat, right? So again, we see our pipeline is running up top. We can view the pipeline. It's going to take its time to run through these jobs. That's great. Let's go ahead and we can wait for that. Let's talk a little bit more about what we can do for Duo chat. All right, cool. One more time, we can open up GitLab Duo chat. If we want to clear this out, as I mentioned, you can do the whole, clear thing, right? Clear it out, give yourself some fresh space here. That's fine. And we can say things like, well, again, in the instructions, you can ask it to develop a whole GitLab YAML file for you, right? Earlier, we had a YAML file already there. We added some comments and some code to that YAML file. We can say, hey, GitLab Duo, create a YAML file for me using Ruby Sinatra in a GitLab CI pipeline. And then I want to be able to see this in a code block. And it's automatically creating this code for me. So GitLab Duo Chat is making this so much easier. I can give it some instructions like I just did, and it already creates the jobs and stages that I'm going to want for this, like I said, a Ruby Sinatra app. I may want to tweak this around and play with it a bit, but I've got the scaling, I've got the skeleton, I've got the starting area that I need for this YAML file, getting going that. And it gives me instructions of what this actually looks like here, right? So it's going to use, it's going to use Ruby here. It's going to define 2 stages. It's setting some variables for me. It tells me how it's going, why did it do this, and what it's going to run through as I'm running this. All right. And then next, what we can do is we can ask it to actually do some documentation, right? So for instance, let's go to, if I go to my repository here for a moment, I'm going to go to my repository and I'm going to go to my library folder, right? I encourage you to do the same. Go to library. You can go to Tanuki Racing and maybe the app RB file, right? So again, it's a Ruby application. Maybe I don't know so much about Ruby. What does this application actually do? What does this actually help me with? Well, we can use GitLab Duo Chat to help us with that very thing. We can say write documentation for the file we currently have open and provide it in Markdown format. Great. So once again, it's going to think about this and give us some markdown information about this Ruby file. Again, saving time, saving energy, saving blood, sweat, tears, and beers on for developers by helping you create your documentation already for the code that you've created. So you don't have to go through and do that, and that sometimes that could be painful, going back and documenting that. Here, I can take this information right away and I can start adding this into, let's say, a common wiki for this project, and I want to share that amongst my team members. This is what this is basically giving me all the information about the functions and methods in this in this class here. Okay, cool. All right. And then what I want you to do now is really you can take some time to play with Duo Chat. So we're waiting for our pipeline to run through. Take some time, play with it. Ask some questions to it. GitLab Duo Chat also can communicate in languages other than English. So hola, Duo. Let's see. I'm going to ask something silly here. Donde es la biblioteca, right? I don't know Spanish, but I'm going to do this. So forgive me if I'm I'm hopefully not insulting anybody. Biblioteca, there we go. And it's not going to know this, but I'm curious what it's going to say. And it's going to come back and it's going to write in, it's not going to know, it says AI assistant and where is the library in Spanish not related to the code we're looking at? Oh, that's fine. It's all right. It didn't come back in Spanish like it, but I was expecting it to, but it's all right. So please go ahead and, ask it some questions. Definitely ask it in a language. I'll verify why it didn't do that for me right now, but go ahead and ask it some questions and check that out. Okay. While we wait for that, pipeline to run, if it's if you're getting anything that's not what you're expected, again, use that feedback. You can use that feedback link to help us. Also, post in the Q&A or post, what interesting questions you may have asked and see if you get what would Duo Chat has helped you with. Okay. And I'm going to try one more time with that because I got that to work earlier and I want to make sure I'm doing that right. So I'm going to try it. So forgive me while I indulge myself on this one. Let's see if we work one more time. Yeah, again, it's not asking me again. But I was able to get a phone one yesterday with it, but that's fine. So go ahead and ask it some questions, and that's okay if it doesn't come back with this. I wasn't expecting it to come back with anything else, but go ahead and play with that for a bit while we wait for that pipeline to run. Okay. All right. Let me check on my pipeline and see how we're going. It's still running on here, which is fine. I can click on the number and see where we are with the stages. We got one last stage that we're going to run on here. What we can do while we're waiting for that one last stage is we're just about at the at the first hour here. We can do a quick bio break if anybody needs to do that. To step away while this pipeline is continuing to run. And when we come back, we can make sure that our pipeline is run. So I would recommend maybe if we do make a 5-minute break and take us to the very top of the hour, that would be fantastic to get that going. So if anybody needs to take a quick break, please go ahead and do so. I'll be right here, and I will just continue to kick this off when we get to the very top of the hour. For me, that's 1 o'clock Eastern. But again, whenever it gets to the top, we'll go ahead and do that. Okay. And again, if you have any questions as we're going through, or you need some catch up time, please use that now, or put some questions in the Q&A box. Thanks. Again, for those that may have just maybe been on a break and come back, we are still waiting on the break. We're going to continue back at the top of the hour here for our Duo hands-on. Please continue to ask questions to Duo Chat while you're on the break, or ask questions to our great Q&A staff behind the scenes. Thanks so much. another couple of minutes, folks. Thanks again for sticking around. We're gonna just get kicked off here in just about another 2 minutes. So thank you all. Go ahead and top off your water glasses, whatever you need to do, your sodas, whatever you're drinking right now. So go ahead. That's fine. Get started in just a moment. Right. Thank you, folks. There was a break there. Hopefully, we got to, like I said, get the chance to step away for a moment, answer an email, whatever it may be. But we're back here, and we're going to go ahead and continue on with our hands-on instruction for GitLab Duo. So I'm on the screen right now. I'm still sharing the screen, and you see my pipeline actually completed right as we were about to take a break, but that's all right. And I noticed a few things in the question. So I did see something about slowing down. I have to apologize. I do get excited about things and talk fast. I'm going to be very cognizant about that for this next part, for the remainder, I should say, of the demonstration. Or the hands-on lab. So again, please let our Q&A team know if I do get too fast or am presenting at a pace that's not comfortable for you. Please let us know. So thank you for letting me know that, so I can adjust for right now. All right. I also noticed while I was looking through some of the comments that someone did get a good rhyme from their issue description. So thank you for sharing that with the Q&A team. That was wonderful. Thank you. All right. So what we want to do now is, now that our pipeline is completed, what we want to do is we want to start analyzing some vulnerabilities. If you recall, part of our remit in the beginning was to find vulnerabilities that may be part of the code base here. So what we want to do is, again, we're looking at the build pipelines page already. Again, if you're not there, it's build and then pipelines. And I also want to provide you some information, insight into what you get. Not only, this is not AI, this is just GitLab in general. We've built our entire pipeline. It's 100% passed right now. And we can see things like, well, these are all the jobs that ran as part of that, which is great, right? We can see, and if we had set up any tests, they'd be here as well. We can look at all the security that was found in this. We're going to do some heavy investigation into this in a moment, in another area, but this is all the security scannings that were done, all those scan jobs that were run here, gave us information about that code that we just put out there. Also, we have licenses. So if you're making sure that you're compliant with the licenses that you're using, let's say for any kind of libraries that you're including into your code, you can set up GitLab to make sure that you are compliant with your policies, whatever you have there. These are the licenses we're detecting in any type of the packages and libraries that we've included in here. All right. Okay. So now we're going to take it a little further here, and maybe, we were going to put on the role of a security member of the team, but we're going to be doing this as our developer as well, which is fine. We're going to be looking at the secure area and focusing on the vulnerability report. Okay, so once again, out of the pipeline page, we're going to secure and vulnerability report. This report is going to show us all of those vulnerabilities that we just basically injected into this by adding in that code. So not the most secure right now, right? We've got some critical vulnerabilities. We've got a number of high and medium vulnerabilities. This is where this particular page is where your security team is probably going to spend a bulk of their time, by looking at what is the security posture of your application, of your project. And I'm looking at this at a project level. Remember, I'm in a project, but we also offer this at group levels as well, or higher level. So if you've got a security member who's responsible for a number of projects, they can look at that from a group level to find out where their vulnerabilities are across all of their projects, for instance. Okay. What we're going to do though is, if you want, you can click into any of these vulnerabilities to get an idea of what this looks like. These are all individual assets essentially, or, of what GitLab provides. So let's look at a description here. We're going to give you what the description is, what project, of course, it's found in. This is a container scanning vulnerability, and it was detected by the Trivy tool, which is included in GitLab, right? All of these scanning tools that I've used here, these are all part and parcel and included in a GitLab instance. I don't have any integration set up to any third-party tools. It's all part of what GitLab provided for me. And we've got additional information, links that give me more information about this container vulnerability. Here's the CVE if I want to investigate it more. And here's a solution for how to fix this, right? So it gives me that insight into what this may look like, right? I'm going to go back into my my vulnerability report one more time, and we're going to look for a specific vulnerability to help us, to give us a little more information. I'm going to clear my filter here by clicking on the X in the right-hand side, and we're going to show everything now. So we're going to build out a filter, and we're going to say status. All statuses is already here. I'm going to click out of this little drop-down box to kind of get to the next area. So all I'll do is click out to get to the next one. I'm going to say, we're going to say the activity is still detected, right? Activity still detected. Click out of there. And we're going to use the semgrep tool. So these are all the tools that were used, and I'm going to say semgrep. And once again, click out of here to get that. And it changes my filter to only focus on these 3 items. These are the ones that it's all statuses, still detected using semgrep. And we can see that we've got something called the use of a weak hash here. If we click into this, let's open this up. And again, we've got our vulnerability page, which shows us the description. It tells us why it's vulnerable, and it gives us information about the severity, as I mentioned, the project it's part of, what tool it used to do so, the location in the repository, in the file, what line number, essentially, right? Again, different identifiers and how we can do this. So, but what's important now is, again, we've got some AI to help us. We're going to be able to explain or resolve with AI at this point. So clicking down the down arrow here, we're going to be able to say explain with AI. It's giving me a lot of information here. I want to know more. Once again, it's going to use Duo Chat, and it's going to open up this vulnerability explain. I didn't have to type that. It automatically did so when clicking that button. And it gives me information about what this vulnerability is, right? It gives me an explanation. It gives me an example of how someone may exploit this, right? Here's an example of how an attacker could exploit this vulnerability. And it gives me a remediation of how I would be able to fix this. Okay, which is fantastic. Again, time savings, not only for your developers, but also for your security team member. Now, if this had been injected and put into my code base, this is a problem, right? This could be a SQL injection where somebody could get in a little easier. The remediation here is to use a much, a better, stronger hashing algorithm, which than what I currently have right now. And thank goodness it explained that to me, and I found that, which is great. Okay. So what we want to do now is we want to go ahead and talk about what does this look like for remediating this? Okay, so we got more insight. We've got the remediation section, and we can see that we need to change the SHA as we're using the SHA-1 is insecure at this point. What we can do is we can close out of Duo Chat here, and we can actually, before we jump in, yes, we can make that change in a code suggestions. We can actually go through and go into an IDE and make that change. But before we do that, let's check to see if Duo can help us anymore. What we have at the top here is Resolve with AI. So I'm going to close that chat window as I did and open up this Resolve with AI, and I'm going to press it, and I do this here. What this is going to do is this is going to create a new merge request that fixes our vulnerability. Something I didn't explain, or I should have explained, is a merge request is essentially the centralized area of GitLab that allows us to focus on what change is about to be made. We can have all the activity around that change, around that commit. We can invite our security members to be part of that particular the merge request itself. We can, again, run the commentary around that. When we're asking it to do this resolution and resolving this vulnerability, as you can see, it just automatically created this MR for me, MR short for merge request. It's telling me it's an AI generated patch. It gets the description, and if we look at the changes here, it's automatically going to make that change for me. I didn't have to type this. I didn't make this change. This merge request is it knows how to make this particular that particular vulnerability. It knows how to resolve that and put the code in here for me. So at this point, it's still going to behave and still have to abide by the rules that I may have for merge requests, like approvals and all that kind of goodness. But I didn't have to go through and actually make the change in code. We knew how to make that resolution with GitLab Duo. Now, I will point out that not all vulnerabilities have the option to automatically resolve with AI yet, right? We have a standard set of CVEs, excuse me, that are that can be resolved with that, and that's okay. We don't want to just go ahead and throw a resolution out there without vetting it and making sure it's the right kind. So if you do get vulnerabilities and you have the option to make that resolve with vulnerabilities, know that it's one that's been tested and vetted by us to make sure that it is a useful result for you in committing that change. Okay. All right. So that's how we can use AI to help us not only understand vulnerabilities, but also use it to help us resolve if that vulnerability is available to us. All right. Okay. So now what we want to do is we want to fully understand the problem and explain a little bit more about that code. So let's go ahead and go into our repository now. So we're leaving the merge request we created. We don't have to merge this in part of the workflow today. I wanted to show you the example of how it could be created, right? But let's go ahead and go now into our repository. And what we're going to do now is go into that file where we found that problem, right? So the location is in library, the library. It's in Tanuki Racing, and it was in the db.rb file, right? So our Ruby file here. And if you recall, it was line 42. So I can come down here. So one thing we can also do is if we want to understand a little bit about this, let's go ahead and highlight this code. And we've got a little question mark over here that says, what does this selected code mean? Let's click on that. And it's going to say explain. And it gives us information about this particular method here, right? This class method is where we see, what this, it gives us information, I should say, how we break this down. What do these variables mean? What does this function actually do for us here? And what I also love about it is that it says it appears to be a potential issue with this code. So we saw this earlier when we were doing the explain vulnerability, but it lets us know already there may already be an issue with this. This is, again, a great time savings for a member of your team maybe coming in and trying to understand what did they mean by this particular code. Maybe you're doing code review for your team, which is a great practice to get into. You're doing code review and you want to make sure you understand what the code actually means that someone did. Open up GitLab Duo and go ahead and right click to explain the code, and you'll be able to see what this is here, give you a better understanding, help you be more on point with what your code is actually doing at this point. Okay. Right. All right. So now that we've got more context around that, let's go ahead and try to fix it in some of the development with GitLab code suggestions. So now we're going to get into the actual code suggestions. So all this time, I've talked about various things that you can do with GitLab Duo prior to even getting into any kind of code suggestions or code generation in an IDE, right? Again, there's many great tools that can help with that, but we want to make sure we're showing this in the full force of what GitLab Duo can do in a single platform software delivery platform, or in a single SDLC platform right here. All right. So let's go ahead. Before we make any code changes, we want to make sure we create a merge request to actually track our work. So a moment ago, we created a merge request automatically from that vulnerability. What we're going to do now is manually create a merge request to actually track this so we can make sure that when we do our commits and we do our check-ins and we have our activity around there, we've got a single source wherever we can go to, this single pane of glass, if you will, wherever we can go to see what is happening. So the way we do that is we're going to go back to our plan area, and we're going to go back to our issues, and we should have two issues. I have a lot of issues, but we've got two issues here. The first one is that modern development with GitLab AI. That's our instructions. And this is the one that you created. My name is going to vary from your name. You may have made it something different, whatever, but click on that issue that you created at the beginning of this hands-on workshop. Okay. And again, there's your generated description. So yours, obviously your mile may vary. It may look different than yours, which is fine. And what I've got here is I've got a button here at the bottom that says create merge request, right? It's a blue button. This is create merge request. And we're going to go ahead and click on that. Okay. If you don't see that, if by chance you're not seeing that, please, in the Q&A box, please let the Q&A members know. We can tell you what's wrong with that, but please go ahead and let us know. But everyone should be seeing this now. Create merge request. This is going to take me to a new screen where I've got a blank merge request. Earlier, you saw that AI Duo created one for me, but this is a blank merge request screen. Takes in the title of the issue. A couple of things I want to point out is it automatically is going to create a new branch for me here into my main, right? So it created this branch based on the issue name, and I've got a title for my merge request. I'm going to go ahead and uncheck this mark as draft. If I need to for that right now. Essentially, all that's doing, if we leave it as draft, is we're letting people know we're labeling in a certain way so that our team members don't just accidentally merge something in, right? It's a rule you couldn't put in place to not merge any draft merge requests in, right? But I just took that label off for right now, which is fine. Okay. You'll also notice that it says closes number 2 on here. This is that issue we created, right? Because this is built from an issue. When we eventually merge this code in, which hint, we're not going to do that today, but if you're going through GitLab and doing this, when you merge this request in, it will automatically close that issue. So you're making sure that you've got that good behavior in your backlog. Okay. All right. So we've got we don't have to put a description here. It's fine. Again, you can assign it to yourself. There's a couple of things if you want to, look at this later at a later point when you have more time. You can see all the different things you can do on a merge request. What we're going to do though is we're simply going to create this merge request at this point. All right, we've created a merge request. Fantastic. There's nothing in here. It's pretty blank at this point because we haven't really committed any code to it. All we've done is based on that issue, and we've made a new branch from that. Okay. Now we're going to get into the exciting part of actually clicking into the code and doing some modification here. All right, so I'm going to give it just a moment to make sure everyone's where we need to be, and go from there. So let's go ahead and click on, excuse me, let's click in the code button. So this blue button here tells us where to go. We're going to click on code, and we're going to say open in the web IDE. All right, so we're opening this in the GitLab included web IDE. So we're going to be using our own web IDE for this today, which is fine. Rest assured that GitLab Duo can also be used with Visual Studio Code, IntelliJ, the IDEs you may be using in your organization. We're not going to go through setting that up today. We're going to be using our own GitLab Duo. I'm sorry, a GitLab web IDE, which is based on Visual Studio Code, to show how this can work for you and getting you some code suggestions and showing what GitLab Duo does here. All right. So hopefully everyone's familiar with what an IDE is. Essentially, it's an area where I can manage my code and make my changes. What we're going to do is we are going to go to a particular file. Again, that same one that we saw earlier. We're going to go to this library file here, and we're going to go to Tanuki Racing, and specifically this db.rb file. If you remember, this is where we had that line function, line 42. So we can use what we learned about the explain the vulnerability by replacing the line in this code, right? So if you didn't copy it earlier, if you didn't copy it, I should have mentioned that, forgive me. If you didn't copy it earlier, if you go back to your issue, the one that we're following along with through the instructions, you'll get an example fix in there. So again, I'm going to copy mine so we can put that change in here, and we're going to go. So one thing I'll point out, let me make a change here. Let me show you something. Is I've got my Duo chat here. Let me show you what this looks. I've got this enabled. So I've got mine on the right-hand side. I'm going to make this a little more look like what you may look like when you first get in. GitLab Duo is available here on the left-hand side, your Duo chat window, right? So it's just like the window chat, the chat window we had in the UI, in the IDE. Yours is going to be on the left-hand side. I made it a little, for me, I want to see it a little different. So all I did is I click on this and I dragged it over to the right-hand side. And now I've got chat available on the right-hand side, as well as my source code and my extensions here. Okay. So I can, my Explorer. So I can see them kind of both. I want to be able to see that. So that's just a little ease of use for me to clean this up. So I move chat over to the right-hand side on that side. So if mine looks different, that's the only reason why is I move that. All right. So once again, we can go ahead and we can go down that line 42, and we can go ahead and make that change if we want to, right? So before we commit the change, let's go ahead and do that. So let's go ahead and copy this. This was the line that was bad. Let's go ahead and delete that and just put that in leaderboard there, right? So let's clean that up. Now we've got that newly created code from our vulnerability, or if you were like me and forgot to copy it, you can take it from your instructions and put it right in there. Okay. All right. But what if we wanted to double check this code and we wanted to make sure that this was secure? So we can use Duo Chat in the IDE to do so. So again, using the Duo Chat icon, the AI icon, that's the same icon that I showed you a moment ago on the left-hand side. It looks like this little chat window. I again move mine to the right-hand side. Here's where you can see you're provided with the same kind of intro comments and commands that you had earlier, but we're also going to use a shortcut to interact with GitLab Duo Chat here. So the code snippet that we just modified here, maybe we want to get a little more information. We can we can highlight the code and right click and say GitLab Duo Chat and say explain this selected code. So these quick actions, these quick commands are available to you from a right-click menu in directly in the IDE. So explain the code, and it's going to open up once again. It's going to explain it here in Duo Chat for me, right? So it's going to find an answer and present me some information about what this code is in this area. Yeah. All right, and there we go. So I'll also point out that I have the ability I can move this a little bit so I can get a little more wiggle room in my chat window. Cool. So it tells me what the method is, explanation. The code is here's what the code is intended to do. It also lets me know that maybe I want to do a modification to that. It says the current implementation has a logical error, right? It may only return the first error. So it may not be exactly what we're looking for. So here's a corrected version. What I like about this is that with that code still highlighted, I could just insert this directly into that area, and it automatically populated that new code that is suggested here for what may be a better way of refactoring that and showing that method working. Okay. Okay. So not only are we able to explain the code, but we can also generate tests from here as well. So again, we can right click that same area. Let's say you can code that method. We can right click GitLab Duo Chat and say generate tests from here. Again, time savings. We want to make sure that you are using your time wisely. It's not always coding that you're doing things. You're doing other things with your time as a developer, and we want to make sure that you're spending that time that's meaningful to you. So we're generating some tests from this method It's going to populate here in a moment on the right-hand side, and we're going to be able to take that information and then maybe just create my test file if I want to. So here we go. So all this information here has been presented based on that simple click and generating a number of tests associated with that method. And here we can see how we would set this up, right? It tells me what I would need to do in order to actually utilize this in my files. So great. Okay. All right. So we've done some explanation. We've generated some tests here. Now let's see if we want to actually do some coding with Duo Chat. So what if we wanted to double check the code that we added was secure? So we can use that. We can use this. We can explain again as we did, which we did. We used that generating tests, which we did, which is fine. But you can use that chat window to do those same slash commands that you saw earlier, or do those right clicks and add that, right? So we can do it and add a new method now at this point when we want to go ahead and go through. So what I wanted to point out there again is using your chat window for generating tests, explanations, asking questions about the code, making sure you have a full understanding of what this actually code is. All right. Now, if you're a sharp-eyed Ruby developer, maybe you've noticed that this particular DB file doesn't have a delete leader method. Remember, part of our remit earlier was to find out where we can make and generate, make our leaderboard better. Well, we don't have a delete method in here, right? Maybe we want to start deleting some false data that's in our project. So our project manager made it clear we need to get this out as soon as possible to get rid of these fake records. So let's use this prompt below in our code. So let's go ahead and find a space where we can do this. Let's go ahead in our file and do that very thing. So let's do this. So I'm going to come here and just comment down, and this is where our code suggestions come into place. So I'm going to say I'm going to put a comment number here, or comment line here, and say write a delete leaderboard. Excuse me, a leader function using the active record. Active record. And I hit enter. I know Duo's working because I've got that little icon again. You may have seen that. It may have gone away too quickly, but it automatically created this method for me, this function for me, excuse me, based on my comment that I put in there. The more information you give it, the more information you may get from the actual code suggestion. So now, just by simply adding a comment, I have this great method ready to go for helping me understand, or deleting a leader on this leaderboard. Okay, and I'll just clean that up a little bit. There we go. Okay. So that's how we can use code suggestions to help us better understand and create our code that we need to. So we're going to also need a little bit more from this is a Ruby application. So we need to actually navigate to a different file and use that new method that we just wrote. So I'm going to keep this tab open. I'm going to go to the app RB file now to take advantage of this, pardon me, of this delete function. So let's go here and go and write another command. Now, what I'm going to do to make it, again, this is a large, if you're not familiar with Ruby, this is a Ruby file to, navigate through all the different methods that we've created. Let's go ahead and add some additional commentary in here so we can take advantage of that function that we just created in here. So once again, I'm going to, as opposed to watching me type, I'm going to copy it out of the instructions and put it in here. Right? So I'm just going to put it somewhere in here. I'm going to do a couple line returns and add it here. I'm going to paste that. Now, it may not come in right away, which is fine. No, and it actually did, which is fine. Or sometimes you may need to go back a line and then hit enter, which is fine, but it came across no problem. So I'm going to say tab on that one. If it doesn't generate that, as I mentioned, you can just say, if you did the copy paste method, you can then back up one space, hit enter, and then there you go as it's simulating entering the comment or the command there. All right. So it may suggest something else, but I'm okay with that one. I don't need that one. I'm good to go. So now I have my delete leader method here in my app.rb file because it took advantage of this other file being open. It knew the other db.rb file was open, so it used that as a reference for how to write that particular function. So depending upon what files you have open, it takes those into context and be able to help you generate the code that you're looking for, right? So as I mentioned, code suggestion only, it does take that into consideration what your files are. So we're going to commit this code later. So we're going to proceed to the next step. We don't have to commit this just yet, but I want you to know that you're able to take advantage of, using those code suggestions, especially by adding in the comment for whatever type of language you're looking for, and then generating some code from there. Perfect. Let's go ahead and create a new class now. So again, we're going to leave this code as is. We're going to create a brand new one. So Project Manager has asked us to create a brand new calculator class. That's going to eventually help us add up the player track times and other things we may use it for. So one more time, while we're in our Explorer here, let's go ahead and right click on the library Tanuki Racing folder, and we're going to add a new file. And we're going to call this calc, we're in Ruby. We're going to call this a calc.rb file. All right, done. Blank, empty file. Okay. So it's here. What we can do is we can actually just say, again, using a Ruby command, I'm sorry, a Ruby a comment, we can say define a calculator class. If I spell it right again, calculator class, or other functions to use. There you go, and hit enter. And again, it's going to just take a moment here, and we're going to get our great suggestion to come in here for what these calculator methods may be. And it's pretty extensive as far as what we have it. It's pretty bare bones, but we've got our basic structure for what we want to use our calculator method for, right? So we can tab into that, and now we've got that created for us. So if we want to use this now for, for other areas, we've got this calculator class defined for us at this point. So code suggestions isn't just working for Ruby files, right? We can support multiple languages for projects. So I'm going to give you some time to play now. So we're going to take some time, 2, 3, 5 minutes, something like that, to navigate to the AI sandbox. So, excuse me, in the top of your Explorer is an AI sandbox. And there's a number of other files in here that you can play with. So for instance, if you're a JavaScript developer, here's a JavaScript file. You can open this up and you can start using the comments and commands that you're familiar with in some of these in these pages here, just to give GitLab Duo take it through its paces. Try to generate some code that makes sense to you and what you would do in this particular area. So have some fun in the AI sandbox just for a moment, utilizing the languages that make sense, right? Again, while you're doing that, I'll play with another one here. I'll come down to Tanuki Racing. This doesn't really make any sense, but why not? Because I wanted to try it and see what it does. Here, you know what? I'm in the JavaScript file. I don't care. I'll try this. I'll do it here. And I'll say, let's see, create a chess game. We talked about Go chess earlier. Create a chess game, for me with, I don't know, white and black figures. There we go. Let's see what happens here. There we go. And now I've got a class for creating a chess game. Oh, hey, the wrong one. There we go. So let's try that again. Hit escape by accident. And it was able to create this chess game for me, and it's in a matter of moments, which is great. So now I don't have to go through and figure out how to do that, or go to Stack Overflow and figure out that information. I've got this right here, and I can start, walking through what this chess game may look like for moving these pieces around, and use this as my starting point for creating that. All right, so take a few more minutes to play around with that, and I'll make sure that we're addressing any questions while I'm doing that, though. Um, Question that came in is, can Duo generate code from scratch? Well, I just did that right there, right? I hope that I was able to show that off by adding in that, just again creating that chess game, from just a command. We did that on the Ruby comment, or I'm sorry, the Ruby file earlier as well. All right. Cool. So hopefully you're having some fun, working on some of those files, because we're getting close to the, actually, we're going to save you some time. We're getting close to the end of the actual hands-on portion. I do have some other slides to go over at the end, but just wanted to give you some time to play around with what code suggestions and generating code can do for you here. Okay. All right. So, continue writing your hello worlds if you want to, and all that kind of fun stuff that you do. Create your chess. Maybe you're writing the next, the next best thing here. Maybe you're creating a new AI model, whatever it may be. But, have fun doing so using the sandbox. I'm going to move on to wrap us up here in this part. So now that we've created this information and we've made changes to our code base, we're going to go ahead and commit and push this code back in. So we're going to go to our source control in the IDE. We're going to say, we can add a commit message here, say, modified files, modified file. See, gosh, I'm having trouble with the spelling today. And added chess game. There we go. And I'm going to say commit and push. Now it's going to commit to that branch that we created that merge request from as earlier. So it's automatically commit that, and it's going to start that process. So once again, we've committed this. We got a little pop-up down here. We can go to that merge request. And now we're back in that merge request, and we see it's a little more exciting now. We've got this pipeline running. We can see what we did. We can see the changes that we made. Again, all these information is here in that merge request that we saw earlier, and it was GitLab Duo that helped us generate specifically, all of this code actually. We made the modification in the app RB. We made our change to the calculation. We actually created this. We made our modification here to the DB file, and then of course you saw me create this silly little chess game, but I added that as well as part of my process. Okay. So that's our merge request. And that was really what I wanted to take us through and the end, the hands-on portion of this particular lab, right? So there are some additional things you can do within this lab. And as I mentioned, we're gonna walk through a few other things here in a moment. But I did want to point one thing out here in the instructions. It talks about additional issues, but for setting up things like enabling code in Visual Studio Code, etc. Actually, I'm going to show you where those are. If you go to the repository, and you go to courses and you go to workshops, you'll see AI, and you'll see optional enable code suggestions in Visual Studio Code, right? So if you're using Visual Studio Code, for instance, this will walk you through the process of how to actually do that. Okay, so again, you can also find a blog supporting the other IDEs that we have, but a lot of times we work with people who are using VS Code, so use that there. And that's how you would set it up for using it in your own IDE in that sense. Okay. You can obviously continue to use the GitLab included IDE, but if you're familiar already with Visual Studio Code, please go ahead and use that there. Okay. Cool. That's going to take us through that hands-on portion. Excellent. So let's go back. And we're going to talk about some AI best practices, according to what GitLab has. And actually, I'll pause for a moment there. Actually, before we jump into this, were there any questions from the QA team? Something we need to address out here? Is there anything that's worth visualizing or vocalizing? And it's okay if there's not. Just want to make sure that we're handling all the questions.
Not yet, but we will have a QA time at the end.
Okay.
So
Cool.
we'll do live QA at the end of this session as well.
Gotcha. Oh, thanks, Logan. I appreciate that. Yeah, forgive me. I
Yep.
forgot to mention that we were doing that. All right. GitLab AI best practices. All right. So let's jump into some of these here. There we go. So, again, here we are. Best practices. Yay. All right. So in our minds, to really be successful in GitLab's minds, I should mention, to be really successful as an organization using AI, you want it to assist you throughout the SDLC, right? We saw that. I keep talking about a single platform. We saw that today because you don't just let the developers have all the fun, right? We want other members of the teams to be able to take advantage of these time savings and efficiency you get with AI, right? So it can help you with all facets and improve speed and delivery to your planners, your developers, your security team, etc. And having that AI assist you and having, excuse me, AI assist you in a single platform where, it's not having to learn multiple models and behaviors, that's going to save time and money as well for an organization. And as another best practice, we want you to be cautious with AI as well, right? Because basically we want you to use AI, but we want you to do it with guardrails. I'm sure you've all seen articles of organizations that have had their code accidentally put out there, or early on when they started using things, ChatGPT or generative AI things, and their code got leaked, whatever it is, and the code that's coming in may not necessarily be the safest and most secure. You can't always trust the AI code, the generated code, right? As much as we want to trust but verify. So if anything, we should be scanning more of the code that's coming in when we generate AI generated code. Yeah. So, and why is security, is so important? And so what we want to do is, if you don't trust me on that, go ahead and make a large code suggestion commit and see the vulnerabilities that came in. You saw earlier when we made a simple change to our pipeline and we just made a quick commit on that. There were a ton of vulnerabilities that came in with that. Again, this is all part of a sample code, and we were expecting that. But you want to make sure that when you are doing generating anything with AI, you've got your security and you've got your compliance as part of your workflow, because that's going to enhance the use and efficiency of AI as well. And GitLab, as a single platform, is uniquely positioned to do just that. And again, I've mentioned it a number of times, by having a single platform and a single data store, it can improve your time to market. You know, costly context switching and keeping up to date with integrations, that can be burdensome and expensive, right? We're not tied to any particular cloud vendor, so organizations appreciate that they have flexibility as to where and how they deploy with GitLab, right? If you're working with GCP or AWS, we definitely have partners that can also work with you to see how GitLab can improve your lives in making sure that you're getting the best out of what you can do, not only with GitLab, but also now adding GitLab Duo on top of that. And one last feature that we didn't really get into, simply because we just don't have the data in the sample project, is obtaining analytics for how your organization is using GitLab Duo. Now, it's wonderful that you may have GitLab Duo, or hopefully soon do, but is it truly giving you the advances that you would expect it to see? So this is an example of a report that we have in the system for providing that insight, right? So not only capturing things like code suggestion usage, right, but also providing insight into things like the core DORA metrics, those DevOps metrics, for showing you how your teams are trending over time with deployments, cycle time, especially as you are building AI into your workflow, right? Prior to AI, what did it look like? Okay, now we've injected Duo into the process. Are we releasing faster? Are we releasing better, more quality, whatever it may be? These are the kind of things we want to be able to get insights into, and this is a report that is available to you in GitLab when you start having more data to present that. All right. Wrapping up closely, we are thrilled to announce that even though we are relatively new into the realm with GitLab Duo, we are recognized as a leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for AI code assistance. Right, this is the first ever year of the category, which is great. This is an important recognition, and we believe it highlights really the commitment to delivering these AI powered capabilities that accelerate the software delivery and enhancing your security I talked about earlier, and helping drive that innovation for your teams. Let's talk a little bit about where we're going. So, a little bit of roadmap on here is the idea of data science, understanding the importance of these of things like model ops, right? So, benefiting from if you're including your own, if you're creating your own models, essentially allowing you to store and version, deploy, track your own AI models natively within GitLab. That's a really exciting piece that we're working towards. And model ops is essentially a portmanteau between data ops and machine learning operations. So model ops, everything you need to do to add AI to your own applications that you're developing. Just like we're adding it to GitLab, we know customers like yourselves are adding it to your software, right? We want to make sure that you support enterprises that in adding these AI, machine learning to the applications. And we started building this functionality actually back in 2021 as a partnership with one of our enterprise customers and the broader GitLab community. So yeah, we're really excited about where we're going with hosting essentially, your own. I'm sorry, creating your own models and hosting those in GitLab so you can generate and have them there right alongside things like our package registries and your image, registries within GitLab. Okay, all right. Okay, excellent. So, what we're going to do here is this last piece I'm going to talk about before we jump into the live Q&A is this idea of transferring your project. Now, as we talked about early on, we're in a sample project that you have access to, of course, by doing this demo and this hands-on. But if you want to take this project you've been working on and you want to transfer this into your own GitLab instance, this is the part where we can walk through this. Now, we're not going to do this on the actual workflow, or I'm sorry, on the actual demonstration today, but I'm provide you insights of where you get the information on how to do it. Okay. Again, only transfer you're done. When you transfer your project, you do not have an ultimate license, you are going to lose some capabilities. So I will caveat that, right? So we did some things today that do require an ultimate license into GitLab. So you may not have all the same functionality that you have right now when you transfer this. I do want to mention that though, right? But so that's just part of the warning here. As I mentioned earlier, finding those instructions are in the workshop course area. So one more time, we can go back to that. Sorry. We can come back here into our repository and we see the courses and we see the workshop. Oh, here, I'm sorry. In the courses area, we see transfer project. When you're ready to make this transfer, go ahead and use these transfer instructions right here, again, in the repository, in courses, and transfer. So in repository, courses, and transfer project is where you find those instructions for how to do that. So when you are set, we can do so. All right. So that was going to take me through those pieces there. Let's open up we can open up some live Q&A. So Logan, you've got experience doing this in the past. Talk to me about how we're going to be doing this right now.
Yeah. So if you do have any questions about the content, GitLab in general, feel free to start sending those to the QA section and we will pick those up. Pretty much how it works is I'll probably read off the question and then really David, Nikita, Rose, any of you can jump in and answer. We do have one question currently open. It says, for code reviews, does Duo allow us to provide custom checks and standards?
For custom checks and standards. So I'm assuming if you wanted to have if you wanted to put your own spin on things. So I'm taking it as that, and I will say that that's not as of right now. And Nikita and Rose, correct me if on this one. That's going to be coming out when we start doing things like hosting your own model with GitLab. So that's coming as well. A part of our roadmap is the idea of being able to host your own models within GitLab. And at that point, then we've had organizations ask us if they can put in certain headers or templates into something, or when they create a template, if it's automatically going to have these types of code associated with it. So I will say in the future, but as of right now, that would be more of a roadmap item, and I can share. I believe I can share where our roadmap is with that, in a link. But as of right now, not right now.
And just to build off that, I know there was a question earlier about like adding your own code standards and having code suggestions and Duo reference that.
Mhm.
That's going to come in play, like David said, with hosting your own models, etc. Which I believe is actually an experimental.
Okay,
It's
cool.
been released as an experimental feature currently, but not, natural progression, experimental beta before full released.
Yep. Thanks, Logan, for commenting on that.
Yep. The next question is, can someone showcase code review via Duo? If we still have that merge request open, Jose, if you could give a little bit more context, are you looking for like a merge request summary, how it reviews the code, etc.? I believe it's the merge request summary, but if not, let us know.
Yeah, I want to make sure I'm understanding that particular one there. Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Code review is a summary, or it goes file by file.
Yep. So I can so here I am in I'm still sharing, correct? Yeah. You see my screen?
Yes.
Cool. So I'm in a code review for, so I'm sorry, let me show you where I went. So I went to my merge request screen, and this was the merge request that I was looking at earlier, or sorry, that I just submitted a moment ago. And I can go to my changes area here, and this brings essentially my diffs, right? So I can see what changes from these were all newly created, which is fine. But I can open up I'm sorry, I can open up my code review here, and I can I can add in some reviews, I can add in some commentary, and then if I've got a number of comments in here, then I don't have a number of comments. I want more people adding to it, but I could get a generation of the comments that are part of this as well. So similar to what I showed earlier about that image summary, I can do that as well with comments if I've got a number of activity in a code review to allow me to understand a little bit more about what are we trying to see here, summarizing on those comments in one place. But I would do that here on this merge request screen by adding in some commentary here. Okay. And then again, if I had an actual workflow of a number of people doing this, I'd be able to do a summary at that point. Hopefully that's
You
helpful.
you also can do an overarching summary of like the changes that were actually done.
Mhm.
Yes, which I meant can do a review to the author. Yes, potentially. So what you can do is you can ask Duo Chat to summarize the actual changes within the merge request, not just the comments, right? So
Oh,
like,
okay.
let's say you introduced a new, like the calculator feature set. If you
Mhm.
open chat, you can say, summarize the comments within this. And then from there, you can have a conversation with Duo, like, were there any security vulnerabilities found in this merge request, etc.
Mhm.
That's where you can do what I think you're getting at. Let me know if that makes sense. And David, I think if you just ask like, can you please summarize the changes in my current open merge
Sure.
request? It
Mhm.
should work.
Mhm.
This did just change, so
Okay.
we'll see.
Okay. I'll check it out. See me. Ah, my gosh. Yeah, again, this is one of the things we talk about with it's working there. Let's see if it there we go.
So then from here, it went through and it summarized all the changes. You could ask like, okay, in lib Tanuki Racing db.rb, are there any unused variables? Did I
Mhm.
add any security vulnerabilities, etc.?
Gotcha.
And the context of chat, if you commonly do that, it will typically learn and usually like auto add that when you ask for the review. So hopefully that answers the question. If not, please
Yeah.
re-comment.
We
The
are,
next question. Oh, go ahead.
Oh,
yeah, we are also working on experiment feature around code review. So for example, on this overview page, we are able to provide like a slash command. I believe it's a slash dual code review that will trigger dual agent, the bot, to run a quick like a scan of the code changes. And the dual will provide a comments and the details around the changes, along with like a recommendations. If Duo finds any findings, and it will recommend some changes, and we are able to apply those changes directly as part of the merge request.
well, that's cool. I've not actually played with that, so I'm happy to try it. If it's experimental, we can see if it's being worked on right now. It was
Yeah, let me,
yeah. If you can find
yeah,
it,
slash,
yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
if you don't mind, can you run the slash duo code review in the activity that
Yeah.
the box?
Is
Yeah,
it is it
and
is
it
it
would
one word?
trigger.
It's not in the chat. I think it's actually like a merge request, like where it says write a comment or drag your files here, I believe.
That's
Oh, yeah.
right. Yeah,
Oh, okay. Oh, thanks. Okay, cool.
yeah.
Perfect. Okay. And then comment on it.
Mm-hmm.
It may not be coming in from the oh, here we go. Starting root and let you know when I finished. Perfect. Thanks, guys. That's great. This is wonderful. These are all new experiments, and that's what I love about GitLab, the iteration piece that we have. So thank you.
And then hopefully that helps answer the question. I saw that follow-up comment came in trying to know like, is this automatically applied, etc. I do believe that the code reviewer, like this experimental feature, eventually will be, but right now everything is kind of as you ask it, if that makes sense.
Nice. So cool.
And
So
then,
if we're all seeing this on the screen, thank you for this. I love walking through this together with you all. It's great. This is what we got. At our chess game, we can add suggestions to the batch. We can apply. Yeah, these are, pretty cool.
sweet.
Very
The
helpful. Thanks for that.
next question we had come in is, does GitLab Duo allow users to select code models such as Anthropic Claude 3.5, Sonnet, or Google Gemini?
Mhm.
And I can answer that. Yes, you can interchangeably swap out the different models you want it to reference. Additionally, now, like we mentioned before, you can actually add your own models. So let's say you have a custom model, like we were talking about, with your own code templates and coding standards. That is something you can now do as well. The next question, can Duo make mistakes? How do we mitigate that?
Can it make mistakes? As
I
far as,
can answer this one.
yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yes, so it did, as you saw, like when we asked it to speak in Spanish,
Yeah.
through chat, you can always give feedback, and it is very reactive to the feedback you give. Let's say you ask something and it's not exactly answering the way you want it to, add that feedback, or even just comment back to it, like, you didn't answer this correctly, I was looking for something else. It reacts to that. In terms of code suggestions, because that's a bigger one, right? Understanding natural language is often easier than understanding code. That's where GitLab comes in as the big winner, because we have built-in security. We have so many extra AI tools that aren't just code suggestions. And that's how you mitigate all of the vulnerabilities that could come in, right? There's a number of different security scanners that now, even like when you we didn't cover it in this live example, but let's say you have Duo code suggestions, write you a function. You can highlight that function, and we do have chat built into the web IDE, and you can ask it to run security scans and tell you if it's vulnerable or not. So that's really where the one platform value sell really comes in, because you're not just worried about like, oh, it wrote 3,000 lines of code for me. Now I have to review this and figure out what all these libraries do. GitLab has plenty of other built-in tools that actually give you the peace of mind that what was offered is actually secure. I don't know if anyone wants to build off that.
I think I covered it.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Next one is, does Dual have the capability to exist in an air-gapped environment?
Yes, we do. We've got some. We can definitely send links. I I have to admit that my PubSec team works a little bit more in the air gap in the offline environments, but yes, we can do that. And I can gladly send information about how that looks. Unless maybe someone's got some links right there, they can pop in, or they want to speak more on it. I don't know if Logan, you've had experience with that as well, but if you do, if you don't, it's fine. But we can definitely talk about how we can work with air gapped or offline environments for sure. If we can get, I think it's Scott's asking this question. If we can get that name and we can provide that information out, I'm happy to do so as well.
I don't have a link available right now, but I know we keep going back to it, but the self-hosted models
Yeah.
capability is somewhere where this has kind of been solved,
Yeah.
right? Especially in the public sector, it's probably the most exciting feature we've released with Duo, because now you have control, like complete control over the model, and it's existing within your GitLab environment. It's not making external calls to anything. If someone can find a link, also, we'll send it in the chat.
Cool.
Otherwise, there are no open questions. We will wait 30 seconds or so in case any others come up before we close out.
Oh, here we go. I've got actually I use GitLab Duo chat for asking it. So I've got some links here I can pop in there. So
Sweet.
yeah, 1 second. So copy, or if that user wants to actually add that, that'd be great. Copy, and I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'll put them in our background channel if you can pop them in the right one. Okay.
Yep. Give me 1 second.
Yep. 1 second. I'm popping this links here. I got 2 links here. Copy link address. Oh my gosh. Well, come on. Okay, there's one, and the next one is here. Copy link address. All right, there's 2 links there in our background channel you save there. Okay.
Yep. And I will send those to the chat.
Mhm.
There's the first one. And the second. And then we did have more questions come in.
Sorry about that. Please do.
The next question that we had is there any security concerns while Duo is analyzing my code in a private repo? So I can answer this one again.
Sure.
We don't actually train any models or keep any context about what you're asking, what you're using for code suggestions, etc. Right? So other tools out there in the past have definitely like used the code that you send it to help train their model, to help give different suggestions based on what you're asking. But we don't actually keep any context around anything that you're using Duo on. We already have everything pre-trained, so that's where it's getting its information. It's not just pulling what you have done. The only caveat with that is with X-Ray, which does run by default with all CI/CD pipelines now. It will have context to like libraries you include, but nothing about your actual code itself. And then of course all that it's not saved anywhere. It's just used while you run your few, use code suggestions for XYZ, and then all that is forgotten. So hopefully that answers your question. We do have a link. Can someone, is it the Trust Center or the Privacy
I'm actually typing
Center?
I'm typing in the Transparency Center right now to that answer.
Yep. So we'll send a link to that. If you just search GitLab Transparency Center, we have an entire web page around how Duo does not train on any of your code, steal your code, etc.
Yep. I just put that link to that user. I don't get in there. Thanks.
So again, we have no open questions. We'll give it 30 seconds or so.
Great.
Seeing no other questions, I think we are good to close out. I just want to say thank you again for everyone for attending. Keep an eye out for the follow-up email, right? We will be sending out an email with a recording of this session, with another link to the slide deck. And you still do have, I believe it's set to expire on the 9th. So you still do have until the 9th to use that group that you redeemed, to mess around further with Duo, test other features of Ultimate out, really anything you want, you have until the 9th. Otherwise, thank you for attending.
Thank you all very much, Logan. I appreciate you backing us up. Rose, Nikita, Beth, thank you so much for all the hard work in the background. Folks, you've made this a wonderful experience for me. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day and enjoy. Please let us know if we can help.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.